Hey, before you watch this, please hit the subscribe button.
Another awesome one, 425. Detroit Lions at the Los Angeles Rams. Stafford, Goff. Rams are favored by 5.5. They're 10-3. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC right now. Lions are 8-5, the number 8 seed on the outside looking in for the playoff picture. It's essentially a playoff game for the Lions.
Yep.
And interesting storylines here, of course. Stafford, Goff, Lions, Rams, the big trade. But this is the first time they've played before. They played in the playoffs. They've played in the regular season. So we've seen it. It's the first time the Rams have been favored, though. It's the first time since that trade that the script has been flipped a little bit as far as their matchup goes. They played in the playoffs in 23. They played at the beginning of last season, which feels like a really long time ago, week 1 of the NFL season on Sunday Night Football last year. And it's just 2 different teams at this point. That's why the Rams are favored by 5.5.
Yeah, remember the Dallas-Detroit game was basically whoever wins that game is 50-50 to make the playoffs, and whoever loses is basically done. So the Lions are sitting there, according to NFL.com, with 53% current chance of making the playoffs. But if they beat the Rams, that jumps to 72. So this is a huge game for them. If they lose, it still only drops to 42, so it's not curtains. But winning this game would be huge for Detroit in terms of propelling themselves towards the playoffs. It would also be pretty huge because, the Rams are a lot of people's best team in the NFL. So the Lions being able to go out there and show that they can still hang with the best teams in the NFL would also be a pretty big statement for them. I think they're capable of it, particularly on offense. That group, we say this week, every week, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, like those guys are dynamic and dangerous. And if you can get the ball in their hands, they can attack anybody. And the weakness of this Rams defense is, where those guys would cook, right? It's out in space. It's in the back 7. Now, getting it to them involves getting the ball in the air before the front 4 murders you. And that may be the problem that they experience. But, there's definitely a world where this Lions offense can still have plenty of success against the Rams.
Just to discuss a little history here, back in 23, when they played in the playoffs, that was the year, right? What a story, right? It's like Stafford going back to Detroit, but as the underdog, right? Like the Rams they won the Super Bowl in 21, but they fell off in 22, had a bunch of injuries, and they built it back up with this young team in 23. But the Lions were like the powerhouse at that point because the roster was so good. They took all those Stafford picks and flipped them into the Jahmyr Gibbs and Brian Branches and Jack Campbell's and Sam Laporta's and everything, right? So the Lions were the better team in the playoffs in 23. And then that first game of last season, they go to overtime. But again, it felt like the Rams were just punching up, right? They were overachieving against this really good Lions team. And then in overtime, the Lions just played bully ball. It was when they still had Frank Ragnow. And he was probably playing on a torn hamstring back then. But they just played bully ball against the Rams, who had this undersized defensive front. And it made sense, right? The Lions have maybe the best offensive line in the league. The Rams have this young, undersized offensive line, and they just play a defensive line, and they just played bully ball. And I'm just painting this picture of things have switched, right? Since the end of last season, the Rams all of a sudden have a top 5 defense. The Lions have had a slew of injuries, particularly on the offensive line. They're not necessarily able to play bully ball. They could still run the ball. We've seen those games where Jahmyr Gibbs completely takes over, but it's not the same as it's been for the Lions as far as week to week efficiency, right? They could still put up monster games against Dallas like they did last week, or put up 200-something yards like Gibbs did against the Giants' run defense. But against better defenses, it's been more of a struggle than it had been in the past. So it's just interesting how the Rams have built it back up again to where they're the favorite. Their defense, I think, has a much better fighting chance than it did previously. Their defensive tackles are all playing pretty well. They've got a guy like Poona Ford, to add to the run defense this year. So I don't think you have the same individual matchups that you had, early last year and then back in that playoff game in 23.
No. The big thing, I think, is going to be it's going to be the Lions' defensive side of the ball. Like, can they stop this Rams offense? Stafford's playing fantastically, but that duo of wide receivers, Puka Nacua just destroying everybody between the red zones. And then once you get in the red zone, Devontae Adams just immediately scores a touchdown with a devastating route, release, whatever that nobody can cover. The Lions secondary is really banged up, really injured. Can anybody in that secondary have any shot of covering Devontae Adams in the red zone? Can they stop Puka Nacua at any point before they get to the red zone? And then, oh, by the way, if you're focusing entirely on just those two guys, they can run the ball really well. So really difficult offense to stop for Detroit.
Yeah, and look, the Rams, they blew it a couple weeks ago against Carolina from their perspective. 3 turnovers, couple fluky, couple on them. But other than that, they still move the ball extremely well.
Yeah.
They have been moving the ball, and they were 2 yards away from an Urban. They almost had an Urban last week against Arizona. They almost had the 250 rushing yards, 250 passing yards.
Almost with the full Urban.
Almost had the full Urban. They were close, 99% Urban, but not full. So, I think
Jimmy G cost him an Urban with a stupid 2-yard kneel down.
I like when quarterbacks specifically try to not lose too many yards on their kneel down. They do it as close to the line of scrimmage as possible.
Jimmy went the other way.
Jimmy ruins the Urban.
The giant step backwards.
I think if the Lions is 5.5-point underdogs. You don't see that often these last couple of years. For them to pull this upset, Goff's got to play a clean game, and their stars got to make plays, right? The same way Amon-Ra was able to take over on a couple plays, and Jahmyr Gibbs out of the backfield and running the ball, able to take over. David Montgomery. So look, I still think you could power run if you were going to choose how to attack this Rams defense. You try to power run against them. So maybe David Montgomery, a couple more carries here and there, help set up Gibbs for some big plays. Their stars got to make big plays. I think we're close. The over/under is 54.5. Vegas is expecting some form of a shootout, despite how good the Rams defense is.
Yeah.
You also have Emmanuel Forbes has shown a lot for the Rams, certainly compared to what he was in Washington, but still has some ups and downs, right? But if you were going to give him a matchup, him against Jamison Williams, too long, athletic, corner versus receiver, that'd be one. It's better than an A.J. Brown matchup for him.
He's played really well this year, except who was it that barbecued him a couple of weeks ago? That got in behind him, and it was
Carolina.
Yeah. So it was
McMillan.
Yeah, and one of those 4th down plays where he was running a deep over, and Bryce Young just drops it into a bucket over the top, and then he's toasted. So that is a fun matchup. The other one I think that's kind of interesting is the Rams. The Rams' offensive line has been kind of crazy this year, and it's not necessarily been 100% healthy either. Rob Havenstein has been hurt, banged up, bits and pieces. They've been relying on Warren McClendon Jr. at right tackle, who's actually played remarkably well. This is a 2023 5th-round draft pick, and generally he's been really good this year. Now, that's fine, but you now have to block Aiden Hutchinson. Is that the type of matchup where all of a sudden you start to see why a guy was a 2023 5th-round draft pick, or is he just actually a really good player? And going up against a guy like Aiden Hutchinson is going to be okay for him.
Yeah, that's the type of matchup. Again, the Lions have to win with their stars. I think they're not.
I don't think they can cover either of those wide receivers. So the only way of stopping the ball getting to them is Aiden Hutchinson going ham against Warren McClendon Jr.
Last thing I'll say, just big picture. Matthew Stafford, number 1 in PFF grade, 93.6. His EPA per play is a little bit lower at 6th. I've been on record when we're talking legacy stuff here. I don't think Stafford's a Hall of Famer. I think a lot of people, as soon as a player wins a Super Bowl, people go nuts as far as Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in the NFL. He just won the Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford, immediate Hall of Famer. If he wins MVP, finishes this run,
I'm kind of coming around to
and
it.
wins a Super Bowl, if he finishes this run or even comes close, I would come around to it.
I don't even know that obviously the second Super Bowl is almost always immediate Hall of Fame validation for anybody. I don't even know if I would need the second Super Bowl as much as he's shown a different level to his game with the Rams than I think he ever really did in Detroit. He was always more inconsistent than elite in Detroit, and he always had elite games. But it was never – I don't think he ever put together seasons like this. And maybe that was all because it was the Lions. But he's shown it for multiple seasons now with the Rams, and this is maybe his best year. So I'm the longer this goes, I'm coming around to the idea that he's a Hall of Famer.
And the strange thing is last year at this time, they were winning despite Matthew Stafford. And he had a good game against the Eagles in the playoffs and everything, but that defense took over last year at this time. So I thought he was great in 2023, had a weird 2024 where he wasn't as good, and this is, I would say, his best start to finish season. 2021 was the year that they won the Super Bowl. He was good most of that year. 23, he's bringing Puka and some of the young kids along, but this is probably his best start to finish season. And so he's got 4 games here to kind of cap it off, perhaps win an MVP, earn the number 1 seed for the Rams, and I think they'll be the favorite probably to, certainly out of the NFC, to win the Super Bowl, but maybe in all of football. So got to get by the Lions first, though, to keep that number 1 seed. Favored by 5.5. The Rams over under 54.5. Where are you going to go with this one?
I'm going to go with the Rams. I think they are. I don't know if they're necessarily the best team in the NFL in any given week, but I think they're the most complete.
Harry and I are just going to disagree with you on everything here.
Okay.
See if we can make some ground up here. So if you're number 1 by the end of the week, we know that we're probably both tied for last, Harry.
Yeah.
I'm taking Detroit. It's a lot of points for me on the road. I do think the Rams are the better all-around team. Love the storyline, love the matchup. The Goff-Stafford thing, it's one of the coolest storylines in football over the last 5 years, I would say. The fact that they both found success in different places.
It's funny that it's worked out for both sides.
It has.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, again, storyline-wise, too, tables have turned a little bit here. The Rams are the better team after the Lions had been. But I'll take Detroit as the underdogs as will, Harry.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video.
Check the Mic is live Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss a video.
You heard the man. Subscribe.